Say what you will about the Home Alone games, but at least it's easy to understand why video game companies decided to adapt them. The first two Home Alone films made big bank at the box office, and I'm pretty sure the game companies wanted to ride on their coattails and make a shitload of cash for themselves. But there are some movies that I truly wonder why video game companies ever bothered to adapt them into games. And this is one of them. Elf? Really? Elf? I mean, I know the film has its fans. I'm not one of them, but I can understand why some people like the movie. Did they take one look at Will Ferrell and his elf getup and think cha-ching in their minds? If they did, well, that doesn't speak too well of their ability to read the market and see trends. And as for the game, it stinks like a fruitcake made out of farts and skunk pussy. So anyway, let's lance this holiday boil. Elf for the Game Boy Advance. Now, I'm not one to hand out my praise lightly, as you well know. And this game's graphics sure as hell don't deserve a lot of raves from me. But I will say this. They're competent. Talk about damning with faint praise, right? But actually, it's substantial praise seeing how atrocious the graphics from other Christmas games are. At least this game has the excuse of being on the Game Boy Advance. What the fuck is the excuse of Santa Claus Saves the Earth or Home Alone? They were on the PS1 and PS2, respectively. Another good point is that the game's visuals do embody the Christmas spirit. In other words, it looks festive. Okay, the graphics do look pretty bland, but at least you can see that this is a Christmas game. There's snow in New York City, candy canes, sleigh bells, and Christmas presents. It may not be bright, but at least it could be called merry. And it's not the absolute shitstorm of graphics that is Santa Claus Saves the Earth. Again, though, that's not saying much. Add to that, Bunny the Elf looks somewhat like his movie counterpart. And the level backgrounds aren't too bad, though they aren't going to win any awards. The game's controls are another story. A very shitty story. This game is mostly side-scrolling levels. You play as the titular elf and must navigate obstacles by jumping over them. But Bunny's jump is so weak and imprecise that it makes certain parts, particularly this isometric level, harder than it needs to be. Trying to gauge jumps like here at this ice flow part is a bitch thanks to these lousy controls. You know, if you're gonna make an isometric platformer, at least have the goddamn common decency to make good jumping controls for it. The other levels don't fare much better either control-wise, especially since the game keeps on changing the controls. So you have to keep on playing catch-up. Okay, I can admire the fact that they were trying to make the game diverse. But there comes a point where there can be too much diversity. Speaking of diversity, let's talk about gameplay. This feels like one of those games where they never figured out what kind of game they were making. So they just threw everything into the kitchen sink, and then they rammed all that shit right down the fucking garbage disposal. The final result is a harebrained schizo piece of grounded up Christmas builds that feels like 5 or 10 bad games all rolled into one. A Christmas sausage, if you will, stuffed full of bad ideas. As I said earlier, the game starts out with side-scrolling levels. Then it tosses in an isometric level with bad jumping. And then a level riding down a hill. Then the game adds in more crap like a Frogger-type level. And puzzle levels. And even an over-the-shoulder snowball throwing level. Guys! What the fuck kind of game are you making here? Pick one or two types of gameplay. Don't do a bunch of different games all badly. Now, some games can pull off this type of diverse gameplay well. This isn't one of them, though. It reeks of incompetence. Well, it also reeks of a lot of other things, but incompetence certainly comes to the forefront. Worse still, this game suffers from one of my perennial favorites. The old too easy, too hard syndrome. Some of these levels are piss easy. Like the one where you have to spell out New York. Really? That was your best idea? Spell out New York? What's your next idea for a level? Finger bang Mrs. Claus or jerk off the 8 reindeer? The level where you collect parts for Santa's sleigh is also super easy. But some other levels like the ice flow one are a bitch to complete. Now admittedly, the game does give you passwords and a good number of checkpoints in most of the levels. And it is generous in some other ways. For example, if you fall into water or a spike pit, it's not instant death. You just take damage. But the game is also generous with its bullshit. Like this ice flow level. Namely, it overstays its welcome for way too long and you have to time these jumps perfectly while avoiding polar bears. Yes, polar bears. An endangered species. Fine, whatever, just go with it. After a short time, this game was really wearing my patience thin. It is just a slog to play, and the difficulty isn't so much shaped in a curve as it is in a corkscrew. It just goes around and around and around in circles. Following a few levels, I quit playing it for a while because this game is super fucking boring. Much to my uncertain relief, however, the game has a password system. So I can come back and continue my suffering! Very Christian to them, these game designers. Yeah, as Christian as Jesus getting whipped half to death and having nails hammered into him. To add injury to insult, the last few levels of the game are ridiculously easy. Like this one here. You drop off presents at houses. And you have to make sure that the right colored presents go to the right colored houses. Right, so is Will Ferrell now a fucking UPS worker? Why can't Santa get off his lazy ass and do it himself? Then again, maybe he doesn't want to be associated with this shitty game. So I can't blame him there. The last level is yet another joke. You have to collect bells to raise the Christmas spirit and power Santa's sleigh. Yeah. Okay, maybe it's true to the movie, but it's still a dud as a level. In fact, the only problem you're going to have is that the shitty controls make it hard to move the sleigh. As for the game's ending, it's a doozy. You get 2 lousy fucking success screens as a reward. Thanks a bunch! Don't even bother to give me an actual ending pick from the film or anything. I wouldn't want you guys to overwork yourselves. If I had a choice between playing this game for 24 hours straight or having Will Ferrell fart in my face 20 times in a row, I think you know what my choice would be. There's also a couple of mini-games that are not even worth talking about. Except to say that they're wasted time like the rest of the game. Nice to see they kept on being a worthless cash-in of the film and didn't rise to the occasion. At this rate, they may as well have had a title screen, followed by a screen that says, "Fuck you and thanks for the money, dumbass!" Then the screen goes black and the game blows up in your face. And then there's the music. Now, in fairness, the game does have some okay Christmas tunes like We Wish You a Merry Christmas in the sleigh level. Here, listen. On the other hand, the original title music is bland as shit. Listen to this! I never thought I'd see the day when I want Christmas music played repeatedly like they do in stores during the holiday season. But after this audio puke, I gladly subject myself to hours of canned Christmas music over this crapperoo. The other music is equally forgettable and not worth listening to. They should have just stuck with the Christmas music because at least that would have been enjoyable to hear. Alas, they didn't. Overall, Elf is the kind of forgettable mass-market trash that gets pumped out when game companies buy a movie license and don't bother to actually consider whether or not they should have bought it in the first place. In short, it fails on every level. As a Christmas game, it's about as merry as getting a case of the fruitcake shits. And as an overall experience, it rates about at the level of eating a bowl full of radioactive mistletoe and drinking a mug full of piss-flavored eggnog. In other words, it's not worth it. So in conclusion, in the spirit of the holidays, I won't dwell on this holiday shanker any further. However, in keeping with the spirit of the holidays, I want to wish all of you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Journey to Silius is one of the best games on the NES. And it's made by my heroes, the anti-ocean of video game companies, Sunsoft. But every now and then, even our heroes let us down. And sadly, this boss battle is a prime example of that. It's not that the battle is terrible. Far from it. It's just that it could have been a whole lot better. So anyway, let's get into it. Stupid boss battles. Journey to Silius for the NES. The final boss. The final battle starts out with our hero Jay on top of a spaceship. The poor guy's been through hell, and he's just standing there when the final boss appears. And this boss is a big fucker, that's for sure. By now I'm sure that most of you are aware that Journey to Silius was originally supposed to be an adaptation of the first Terminator movie. And when Sunsoft lost the license, it became one of the greatest missed opportunities in video game history. Instead, it got handed over to the bozos at Mindscape and Radical Entertainment, and it became the awful piece of shit we know and loathe. So looking back at the game's history, it's not surprising that the final boss looks like a ginormous Terminator endoskeleton minus his flesh covering. Needless to say, the boss looks very imposing. Unfortunately, as the old saying goes, looks can be deceiving. Simply put, this is one of the lamest final bosses in any NES game. As I recall, even one of the old video game magazines, maybe it was Electronic Gaming Monthly or GamePro or one of them, anyway, even they said this boss was weak. So what does this big-ass fake Terminator do in the way of attacks? Why, he walks up to Jay, ducks, and punches at him. Okay. Alright, what else is in his repertoire of attacks? Nothing! Yep, that's right. Nothing. He doesn't throw a bomb or shoot a laser or even stomp the ground. He just walks around and punches at you. What the fuck? Are you fucking kidding me, game? This is it? A walk and a punch. Okay, to be fair, his punch can do a good deal of damage. But still. I mean, there's gotta be a second form or something. Maybe another boss? A minion? A buttfuck buddy? A rabid chihuahua with a nuclear cannon strapped to its back? No, this is it. He just walks back and forth and punches at you. This is some really weak shit. Lately, I've been facing a lot of lame-ass final NES bosses. There was Mola Ramen Temple of Doom, the Light Bright Nuke and Russian Attack, and now this El Lamo T-Zero. What's even worse is how you defeat it. Wanna guess how? Nah, I won't keep you in suspense. You just shoot it in the head. That's it! Okay, his head is his only weak spot. But come on! That's all you have to do! And if you have enough ammo for the grenade launcher, it's a fucking joke! Just hit the boss 7 times in the head and he's done for. Wow, what a battle! It's really thrilling! If your idea of thrill is just plucking your asshole hairs while in the shower. But even if you only have regular pistol ammo, he's still a joke because his pattern doesn't change. Plus, he doesn't activate any new weapons. Back and forth punch, back and forth punch, back and forth punch. This is one case where I really feel sorry for the boss. Because it is so fucking lame. Taking this thing out is a mercy killing, believe me. Do you know what the saddest part of this boss battle is, though? Any of the other bosses in this game would have made a better final boss. I'm serious. The tank, this laser computer, this alien space jockey thingy. Even the fucking copter on the first level was more of a threat. How in the fuck do you make a game where the first boss is more of a threat than the final boss? It's inconceivable! Hell, if this big ship that you fight before the final boss was the final boss, it would have been a better final boss. Oh well, as Sarah Connor said, you're terminated, fucker! You kill the final boss, you win the game, roll credits. So in conclusion, this lame final boss battle shouldn't deter you from playing Journey to Silius, because it's still a terrific game. Unfortunately, it just couldn't stick the landing. Bad Street Brawler is bad, alright, but not in the way the game designers think it is. It's the kind of bad that makes other crappy fighting games look wonderful by comparison. Though in the game's defense, I did find it unintentionally funny in certain parts. Which is more than I can say for some bad games. So anyway, let's get into it. Bad Street Brawler for the NES. So this is our hero. The Bad Street Brawler. Okay. He looks like a Terminator who just escaped from the nearest gay bar. Now look, I'm not a fashion or a military expert, mind you, but I really don't think a piss yellow shirt and short shorts is the most intimidating thing you can wear into street combat. I mean, if he wants to make his enemies laugh themselves to death, then yeah, that might work. Really though, this guy is emblematic of how goofy this game's graphics are. And let me tell you something, folks. This game's enemies ain't exactly gonna send shivers down your spine. Circus midgets? Pug dogs? Banana-throwing gorillas? Post-nuclear punks? Fat fuckos? Magneto wannabe breakdancers? World War I black German soldiers? Mutant knife ladies? Skaters? Transsexual basketball players? Jesus Christ, these are some of the dopiest looking enemies I've ever seen in a game! And the backgrounds. I think they were trying for a whole Warriors type vibe with the city. You know, all rough and seedy and shit. Yeah, but this city looks like the Warriors is reimagined by Pee-wee's Playhouse. If you want a rough, seedy looking city, you're better off playing Final Fight for the arcade. Because this city looks about as threatening as a walrus queef. Oh, but the fun doesn't stop there, sports fans. Oh no. The game's controls are a real riot. Instead of giving you a basic set of fighting moves, you know, the usual punches, kicks, etc., the game decides to get cute and change the fighting moves in multiple levels. For example, in one level you get a sliding kick. In another one, an elbow. Oh, but the real prize is this move. The Coppa Feel move. Jesus Christ, is he fucking jerking off his enemies? I've heard of special moves before, but this one's a little too special, if you know what I mean. Could you imagine playing this game back in the day and having your mother come in and see you do this? What are you doing, kiddo? Oh, not much, Mom. Just giving a gorilla a hand job. The worst part of these fighting controls, though, is that different attacks affect different enemies in different ways. Use the right attack against an enemy, and you'll clobber him. Use the wrong one, and you'll get your ass handed to you. I think it would have worked much better to have the same moves on all the levels, or at least limit the number of special attacks. When it comes to bad, though, the controls ain't got nothing on the gameplay. Get this. The best strategy in most of the levels is to run away. I'm not kidding! And not only that, typically it's better to run than fight when you can. Because this bad street brawler can't brawl for shit. I swear I beat half the game just by running through the levels. For a bad street brawler, he doesn't seem to do an awful lot of brawling. But I guess Bad Street Wuss or Bad Street Gorilla Fucker wouldn't sell as many copies. Oh yeah, and there's also these pedophiles or Inspector Clouseau midgets who give you flying health hearts. But then sometimes they give you bombs. What the fuck? Oh, whatever. I'm not even gonna waste any of my brain power trying to figure out this game. Just don't give me anything else from under your coat. Okay, buddy? Thanks. Adding on to the pointless lunacy, in between levels you get shots of the T-69 tossing collected weapons into the trash. Which is the same place anybody with half a brain would throw this game. But I digress. There's also some cutscenes that are somewhat inappropriate for younger viewers. Gee, thanks for the animated crotch shot! If I wasn't gay when I started playing this game, I sure will be by the time I finish it. You know, game designers, there are some things you can leave to the imagination. However, I do get the feeling that the game designers had their tongue somewhat in their cheeks when they made this game. Or at least I hope they did. So I am willing to be more forgiving about how repetitive the gameplay is. And at least the Bad Street Groper can fight a little bit, unlike the slow-as-hell fucks and best of the best for the NES. Oh, and here's another fun little tidbit. You can play the game with a power glove. Why you want to, though, I have no idea. Unless you want to make the game even harder than it already is. Otherwise, though, I think a regular controller is the way to go. Speaking of hard, the game really ramps up the difficulty in the later levels. For example, this Rocky wannabe who has an attack that literally knocks off more than half your life with one punch! Jesus Christ, talk about unfair! Plus, these World War I black German soldiers have these cheap shots that you can't duck. That's a mein Scheiße! And the last level is pretty much a level from hell. These white-haired Magneto-like cocksuckers can take off a ton of health with their fucking breakdancing moves. And not only do they hurt you badly, they stun you and leave you open to even more attacks. Add to that, they keep spinning around the screen, making it even harder to hit them. I'm surprised their asses aren't chafed by now. Then these mutant bitches with knives come to finish you off, assuming the breakdancers haven't gotten you first. Look, I know the last level is typically supposed to be the toughest one. But there's tough, and then there's cheap. And this is certainly a case of the latter. On the plus side, though, the game does give you some limited continues. As for the final boss, he's different, I'll give him that. But even with all his moves and weapons, he's still easier than the actual level. Just pile drive his ass a couple of times and you win! Hurrah! And then you get the ending, which is as short as, well, the Bad Street Brawler's shorts. One shot of him in a car in a parade, and he gets the keys to the city, or some shit like that. He's made the city safe from midgets and gorillas. My fucking hero! One of the few things about this game that I guess you could call decent is the music. There's this one track that's actually not too bad. Here, listen. But the rest of the music isn't really worth talking about because it's pretty fucking forgettable. Finally, there's another version of this game for the Commodore 64. It's called Bop and Rumble. And no, I didn't fucking make that up. And by and large, it pretty much plays the same as this game. But these titles, man, boy do they stink! For Christ's sakes, why give these games such shitty titles? If I didn't know any better, I would think they gave them these titles just to make sure they didn't sell. So in conclusion, I'd suggest giving this game a pass. Unless you're looking for a good laugh and you don't mind being frustrated for a couple of hours. If so, then yeah, go for it. The biggest problem I had with doing a Levels from Hell video on Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories was picking just one. Because this game has the highest number of unfair and downright aggravating missions out of all the GTA games I've played so far. For every easy mission you get, you then get something like Boom Shine Blowout, Tune In, Turn On, Bug Out, and The Exchange, among others. Just one goddamn clusterfuck after another. So anyway, let's plow right into this bitch of a mission. Levels from Hell, Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories for the PlayStation 2. Unfriendly competition. Unfriendly is certainly an apt word when it comes to describing this level. Another one would be hostile. Even more accurate would be fucking infuriating! One of the biggest problems with this mission, indeed the game as a whole, is the difficulty is all over the map syndrome. Okay, to very briefly recap the story, the mission starts with you accepting a job from a pair of drug dealers named the Menendez brothers. They bring our protagonist, Victor Vance, to their mansion and ask him to take out some rival dealers. And since this is a GTA game, naturally he obliges them. When you start out, you leave their mansion and head to the first drug dealer's place. Now this first part is really easy. It's your standard GTA mission where you mow down a couple of guys. No big deal. And if this were the kind of opposition you face throughout the rest of the mission, this wouldn't be a level from hell. Actually, I think this is a great start to the level. Alas, the next section goes downhill real fast. Like a mudslide fast. So anyway, once you take out these guys, you're told to go to a hotel to take out drug dealer number 2. And if your health and or body armor is not at max, I strongly suggest you replenish them. Because this next part is the stuff nightmares are made of, and you will most certainly need to be at your best. Alright, assuming you don't fuck up along the way, you arrive at the hotel. And then shit gets real, well, shitty. Old Vic goes behind the hotel to a pool and meets with dickhead number 2. Some pimp fucko who looks like he got dumped out of a 70s blaxploitation flick. And he's surrounded by a bevy of sexy, scantily clad ladies. Now Vic is ex-military, so you would think he'd realize something is up. But he must have sniffed too many of his farts that day and wrecked his brain, because he walks right into a fucking trap! All the ladies pull out the big guns. And I ain't talking about their titties. And here's where the level hops the suck train to Shitsville. The game literally drops you right into the middle of an ambush. Okay, under other circumstances, this might not be so terrible. Except you are in the middle of this pool area, and when the cutscene ends, this woman next to you just starts fucking shooting you! Yep, no warning, no time to move, nothing. You lose. Good day, sir. Fuck you, game. Seriously. Really, sports fans, there ought to be a law in video games that enemies can't literally attack you immediately after a cutscene ends. It is dirty pool. And even once you know to be ready, this bitch can still get some cheap shots on you. However, once you know she's there, you can usually take her out fast. Unfortunately, there's a literal goddamn army of other ladies shooting at you, and you are trapped in a highly exposed position. So the best strategy is clearly to get the hell out of there fast. The problems with this level don't stop there though, oh no. There is so much fucking lead flying in the area that it is damn near certain that you will take damage. And more than likely, you'll get wasted a few times before you can react. So you have to start the whole mission all over again. Now some GTA levels are just as crazy as this one with the action. But this level is designed in such a way that the scenery constantly gets in the way of your goddamn shots. For example, you can auto-lock onto an enemy, unload a whole goddamn magazine at him, and not hit anything. It is just insane. The level really needed to be more smoothly laid out, so you wouldn't run into this problem. Also, the auto-aiming in this game needs a tune-up because it will get you killed unfairly numerous times. Worse still, there are so many fucking enemies around that it's difficult to figure out who to lock onto. They're above you, below you, across from you. Unbelievable! Even fucking Rambo couldn't survive all this shit. Normally I'd say find a safe spot, but there's barely any cover in this area. About the closest thing to a safe spot is this tree on the left here. Unfortunately, the problem is you can't really shoot anybody from behind it. So you have to run out from cover to shoot back, and you take more hits. Real safe, huh? Beyond all that bullshit, I swear some of the enemies literally teleport out of nowhere and ventilate you. Really, game? You pull this fucking bullshit? I wish I could crap a mountain full of diarrhea onto the game designers and light it on fire. This is so low. You know, I think even they might have had an inkling of how unfair this part was because this one health icon here keeps on regenerating. Then again, they could have just tweaked the level and made it better, but why make our lives easy, right? The only other advice I can give you, aside from praying, is to get the Combat MG at the movie studio. Not only does it have 100 rounds or more of ammo, it kills enemies with one shot. And unlike the AK-47, it doesn't run out of ammo after 30 rounds and leave you stuck in a reloading animation, which leaves you vulnerable to getting shot. I lost count how many times I died in this part. Too many, that's for sure. I tried some strategies that I found online, like shooting from the top of this diving platform here, but they didn't help either. The only strategy I have is don't get killed. Yeah, real great strategy, huh? But the fun is not over yet. Yes, there's a third part. Jesus! If the level ended here, that would be enough to scar me for life. But the game designers just didn't know when to quit. The pimp takes off in an ATV with a lady, and you have to chase them down and kill them. Plus, you have to be very careful getting near the back of this ATV. Because if you're reckless, the lady on the back can kill you fast with her submachine gun. And if that happens, yep, it's all the way back to the beginning for you. Start all over again and suck it, bitch! Fellas, you don't have to make levels like this damn near impossible. You can quit while you're ahead. But why be decent when you can be assholes? Okay, so you finally blast her off. Now it's time to take out old Pimpo. But if you don't do it fast, a fucking chopper with two ladies comes in and shoots at you. Where the hell did this thing come from? And how did it get here so fast? Next, I suppose they'll be dropping a nuclear bomb on the beach to take me out. Oh, but the pimp tosses grenades at you too. Close enough, I guess. Moving on, you mow down this chump and the level is finally over. Oh, and as an added slap to the face, all you get for your efforts is $1,300. Alright, in 1984 money, that's not too bad. But no matter how much they paid out, it's not worth all the fucking aggravation you had to go through to win. At that price, I would have just hired someone else to do the job and saved myself the trouble. So in conclusion, I wanted to like this level and the game as a whole. But unfair shit like this part soured me on the whole deal. So I wouldn't be in a rush to play this game unless you're a glutton for punishment. Amagon is a game that seems to have fallen right off the map into total obscurity. It's one of those games that wasn't good enough to become a NES classic, and wasn't quite bad enough to become infamous. Unfortunately, it's easy to see why it might have disappeared, since it's not a very good game. Though it does have a few interesting ideas. So anyway, let's get into it. Amagon for the NES. Have you ever played a NES game that for all intents and purposes looks like a pirate game, even though it isn't? Yep, that's this game. I swear, it looks like the biggest pirated piece of shit ever. But then you look at the box art and see, yep, there's a Nintendo seal of quality there. Then again, seeing how Nintendo put a seal of quality on such gems as Bad Street Brawler and Dr. Chaos, that ain't saying very much. While I'm on the subject of box art, you'll recall that I reviewed it a long time ago, and I thought that it looked cheap. And I still do. And even a little creepily pedophilic. But anyway, the box art makes it look like one of these El Cheapo games that you'd find in a side street stall in downtown Hong Kong. And the game itself certainly falls through on the cheapness. From the box art, we go to the game's graphics. Specifically, our hero. Our hero! As you well imagine, I use the word hero only in the loosest sense. If this guy's a hero, then I'm the fucking Pope, baby! This guy literally looks like the most unheroic hero I've ever seen. Reddish hair, a big dumb chin, and a walk that makes it seem like he's holding a fart in between his ass cheeks. He looks like a transgender Neanderthal just got fucked sideways with an elephant dick. And get this. He's supposed to be a Marine. A Marine? You're not shitting me, game? No, this game shits me not. And apparently he's supposed to be the top Marine according to the manual. Excuse me while I laugh out loud again. This guy is not a Marine. This is a Marine. Again, look at this guy. He wouldn't pass for the Merchant Marines, let alone the regular Marines. After all, the motto of the Marines isn't the few, the proud, the retarded. Link and Mega Man could kick this fucking guy's ass without even trying. Oh, and to be even more critical, that biplane looks small as shit. Clearly, proper scale and modern technology was not foremost on the game designers' minds when they made this epic masterpiece. Then there's our hero's alter ego, who looks like a gay Beetle Bailey on steroids and wears tidy whities. Excuse me, tidy pinky purples. Nice to see that all that gear didn't affect his fashion sense or shrink his nuts down to the size of raisins. Even some of his animations look goofy. Like his stupid uppercut, or when regular Amagon runs out of ammo and has to use his rifle as a club. It just looks dumb as shit. I don't know, maybe it was intentional. It's not like the game is winking at me here. Not to be outdone, though, the game's enemies are even goofier. You face bouncing mushrooms. And yes, that's not a joke. And there are these purple crab things, and snakes. And in later levels, there's these little UFOs and these moles? What else can I say? These enemies look stupid as shit, and I very much doubt they'll ever be considered as iconic as, say, Metroids. As for the level graphics, they're serviceable, but flat. There is the occasional nice detail, such as the boat in the background, the one that you'll eventually go to. But most of the levels look generic and dull. It looks on par with an average NES game. Maybe even a bit below par if I'm not pulling my punches. The game does have some other good graphical touches, though. I'll give it that. For example, the hippo boss in the third level. It has these big eyes that approach you from behind a waterfall. I like that touch. But for the most part, this game looks cheap and uninteresting and has no graphics that stand out. Next, there's the controls. And here's where the problems really start rolling in. On the surface, the controls are pretty basic. You jump with A and attack with B. Now, as the ordinary wimp, you shoot a gun. Unless you run out of ammo, in which case you club enemies, as I said. But guess what? You can only shoot straight and while ducking. And unfortunately, this causes big fucking problems because a lot of the enemies are either above you or at odd angles that makes it easy to miss them. Now, admittedly, some games can pull off this kind of shooting well. Like the Mega Man series. But in Mega Man, you get multiple weapons, some of which allow you to shoot in multiple directions. This is one of those games that I think would have benefited greatly from allowing you to shoot in multiple directions, like in Contra or Metroid. But then those games are actually user-friendly! This game is about as user-friendly as a Thai prostitute with cold hooks for hands and a bad case of the clap. Now when you transform into Mega Dork, you get 2 attacks. When is this annoying uppercut that hardly has any range? That's right! You literally have to be standing right under an enemy's fart hole to knock him off! Why this doofus can't just, punch straight ahead is a question I doubt anyone could answer. Shit, even Altered Beast for the arcade did this better. And since this game heavily rips off that one, you'd think they could have stolen that much. His other attack, a blast, is more effective and has better range. But guess what? Each blast takes away 1 life point. Splendid! That makes perfect sense. Like when you shoot a Glock, you spontaneously lose a pint of blood. Despite these issues, Amagon still might have been a salvageable game. Note the word might. Alas, it's a lost cause from the word go. The biggest problem with this game is the difficulty. It really is way too fucking tough, which is odd to me because the game looks all goofy and shit, like an easy kids game. Get this. The game only gives you a couple of lives to start. And there's no passwords. Okay, there are 1-ups and some extra lives after so many points, though they aren't plentiful. Now some games I like are almost this tough. But here's the big difference, my friends. Our hero can only take 1 hit while in his wimp form. Really? Yes, Pally, 1 hit. Lose all your lives, lose the game. Now if you collect one of these Muscle Man icons, the game says, GO! Which means you can hit select and turn to Mr. Steroids here. And guess what? He can take multiple hits. Great! Except it depends on when you collect the icon and how many points you have. Low score equals low hit points. Marvelous! Alright, Mr. Steroids kicks ass, and if you transform into him, he can tear through the levels. But if you take too many hits, you turn back into the piss boy. Ha ha! I don't know why the fucking hell they couldn't just give you a life bar the whole time. Or at least pull a Contra and have you respawn where you died. Alright, in fairness, the game does give you a good number of checkpoints in each level. But they're as useless as a condom full of holes when you can die in one hit. The game could have solved half its problems if it gave you multiple hits in both forms. Or at least a password. Now admittedly, for some demented reason, the game does give you continues and a level select when you get to level 4. But you can only choose from one of the earlier levels. That's right! You can't stay in the current level. What the fuck, game? Why not just have, infinite continues and keep me in the same level? Jesus, are you trying to piss me off, game? Yeah, you betcha! Shit, another American Sammy game like Ninja Crusaders gave you infinite continues and you stayed on the same level. Not this pile of crap, though! Like I said, this game is way too fucking tough for its own good. Worse still, though, Gay Muscle Buttman can still die in one hit if he falls down a pit. Then you start back as the Wuss Man. Thank you for your generosity, game. Thank you. Not to mention that you have to change back into the Wuss Man at the end of every level. That's right! Your power-ups can't carry over to the next level. Please, punish me some more, game! I love it. Another odd point is that you get 300 bullets for your gun when you start out. Why 300? I don't know. You got me. It's just such a weird and random number, like they picked it out of a fucking hat. And it's like the game gives you too much ammo, yet not enough. Now you can collect more rounds from some fallen enemies, but again, if you run out, you have to club them. Here I think they should have just given you unlimited ammo, or at least some weapons upgrades in addition to the strength upgrade. But then this game ain't in the giving mood. The strangest thing about this game, and that's saying something, is that Mega Dong, Mega Dick, Mega Cunt, whatever this guy's name is that he makes some levels and some bosses super easy. I mean, you could just plow right through them. I think it might have worked better if the game just ditched the lousy shooting altogether and had you play as the big guy with the life bar through the whole thing. And is it just me, or is it strange that 80s games like this one had your hero muscle out like this? It's like the point of this game is that steroids are fucking cool and will turn you into a beast, kids. So take as many of them as you can. Although I will give the game credit for this. It has a decent ending. Not that it's worth going through all this shit to get to it, but it's the thought that counts. Finally, there's the music. And aw shucks, are you really shocked that it's as goofy as the game? Sure you are! Okay, in fairness, the first level music ain't horrible. Here, listen. But some of this game's music sounds like the composer stuck a kazoo in a kangaroo's cunt and let it queef all night. Listen to the goofiness of this opening music. Ugh, about sums it up. Look, I'm not asking for Mozart here, folks. But this is making the opening to Hide Light sound good. All in all, I can't totally slag this game. If you want a challenge, this game will fit the bill nicely. If you want fun, though, you do better looking someplace else. So in conclusion, unless you like super tough games and want to be run through the meat grinder, I wouldn't bother with this one. Even if you say yay, though, there are better hard NES games out there. Still, as they say, your mileage may vary. There are 2 Gremlins 2 games for DOS. And no, I didn't repeat myself by saying 2 twice. One is an utter fucking nightmare of a game by Elite Systems and Motive Time Limited. I'm not reviewing that one. The other one is by Rydell or Riedel Software or however the fuck you pronounce it in High-Tech Expressions. And it's alright. This is the one I'll be reviewing today. So anyway, let's get into it. Gremlins 2 for DOS, the high-tech expressions version. To go on a brief tangent, isn't it odd when game companies release two different games based on the same movie for the same system? For example, it happened with Last Crusade for the NES. There was the Taito version and the Ubisoft version, and they both sucked. In the case of Gremlins 2, however, this game isn't anywhere near as bad as those games. For one thing, the graphics are actually pretty good, at least with the opening title card anyway. Also, the game over screen looks nice with poor doomed Gizmo backed against the wall by a bunch of gremlins. As for the in-game graphics, they're not so great. Billy looks friggin' anemic and he walks like he's trying not to shit himself. I wish they had made his walking animations a bit less stiff, but it's not a deal breaker. As for Gizmo, well, he looks less like a Mogwai and more like an Ewok fucked a vampire bat, and this was the resultant offspring. Still, at least he looks somewhat like his movie counterpart. Funny enough, I thought that the Gremlins looked better than both Billy and Gizmo. And I thought that the game designers did a good job representing the different types of enemy characters that were in the movie. Environment-wise, the Clamp building looks suitably trashed like the film. Though the washed-out color palette does make it look like Die Hard on welfare. Moving on, the controls are dirt simple. You move Billy with the keyboard directional buttons and shoot his flashlight or camera with the spacebar. Now again, it is difficult to move Billy at first because he moves so stiffly. But eventually you get used to it. Unfortunately, it's a bit harder to get used to the shooting in this game because he doesn't shoot straight ahead. I wish they had Billy shoot straight ahead because I think that would have worked a lot better. When it comes to the gameplay, it reminded me of Die Hard for the NES. Like that game, you're trapped in a skyscraper and you can freely go from floor to floor. Except instead of killing terrorists, you're killing gremlins. And unlike the Die Hard game, each floor has a specific number of gremlins you have to eliminate. Now on each floor, you have to take out all the gremlins or else they'll multiply. To do this, you either use the aforementioned flashlight or the camera, which acts like a mega shell and kills all the enemies on screen. But both weapons only have limited ammo. Fortunately though, you can pick up more ammo for both weapons throughout the floors. The number of gremlins on a floor is represented by a monitor near the elevators. It's called Pest Infestation. Now I do think that describing gremlins as pests is a wee bit of an understatement. It would be like describing bubonic plague as a minor irritant. Semantics aside, however, this monitor is very handy because it not only shows how many gremlins are on the floor, it also shows where they are. It's a nice touch because it does make gameplay a hell of a lot easier. Another nice touch is that you can take the floors on in any order that you like. Also, floors with the amount of gremlins on them is represented on the left-hand side of the screen. And unlike the horrendous Elite version, the gameplay here is fairly easy. At least Billy can hustle in this game, and there isn't those fucking annoying one-hit deaths and cheap cock-sucking gremlins popping up everywhere. Overall, there really isn't much to the game. You just go floor to floor and kill gremlins, collect items for points, and food for health. That's pretty much it. There's a lot of floors and a lot of gremlins and no save features or passwords. Admittedly, I might have been inclined to give this game a negative review just for that alone, but at least it doesn't have a criminal level of difficulty like some of the other Gremlins 2 games. And that alone makes it a better game. So I'm willing to be more forgiving of its faults. One of the strangest aspects of playing this game, though, is its lack of music. However, there is one piece of music on the title screen. It's Peer Gynt's In the Hall of the Mountain King by Grieg. Here, listen. A strange choice for a Gremlins game, to be sure, though as a classical music fan I do appreciate it. It's not a bad rendition. Though I do wish they could have used Jerry Goldsmith's wonderful score from the film. During gameplay, though, there's no music. Which is really strange to me because I'm so used to hearing game soundtracks. I think it works for the game, actually. Makes it feel kind of surreal. There are some primitive sound effects, too. Beep! Boop! Boop boop boop! R2-D2 must be off-screen having an orgasm. Plus, there's the elevator sound effects. Which sound pretty good. Then again, I don't know how in the world you could fuck up an elevator sound effect. When you get right down to it, Gremlins 2 is not a great game by any means. It'll never change the course of video gaming history or even leave you breathless. But if nothing else, at least it has the virtue of being bearable to play. Unlike some of the other awful Gremlins 2 games. So in conclusion, I'd give this game a marginal recommendation. But I wouldn't suggest going out of your way to play it, since it is rather long and repetitive. Unless, of course, you're a fanatic about all things Gremlins, in which case, have at it.